Well, wastewater permits up for public comment don't usually generate a ton of buzz, but that's not the case for two of them for Keewatin Taconite. At issue, something called the sulfate standard, which is aimed at protecting wild rice. But the mining industry also wants to protect their futures and the way they provide for their families.
People don't realize almost everything you do, almost every minute of your day involves steel.
And that material gets its start on the range.
We take pride in it. We really do. We take pride in what we do, and we do it better than anyone else in the world.
The iron in the ground turned into taconite pellets and shipped to the steel mills on the lower lakes. It's been happening for 140 years with plenty of ups and downs.
I've lived through the mine shutting down in the 80s, and it wasn't pretty.
Now in 2025, the leaders of all 6 unions at the mines say they're facing a serious environmental challenge, making sure their wastewater meets the wild rice sulfate water quality standard. According to the MPCA, sulfates are a naturally occurring chemical often found in wastewater operations. According to the EPA, you can't taste or smell them until you hit the 250 milligrams mark. The standard for wild rice waters is 10 milligrams per liter, or 10 parts per million. The MPCA says that number remains protective of wild rice in most circumstances, and the agency will enforce it in permitting based on Clean Water Act responsibilities. Not just for mines, but Keetac happens to be the first.
All 6 mines are under attack, mostly from the metro.
A meeting just last week, hosted by the Iron Mining Association, RAMS, and the Iron Ore Alliance, laid out the history.
So it started in the 40s and 50s. There were some field evaluations. Based on that, in the 1970s, the standard was set.
The state did try and update the rule, but it was never finalized. The MPCA is starting to enforce the 10. Keetac has a deadline of April 30th, 2030 to meet it for nearby Hay Lake. Senior Director Environmental Chrissy Bardovich told the crowd they've been discharging to Hay Lake for about 60 years.
Almost 60 years of discharge, and there's healthy wild rice there.
They and mining advocates believe the 10 standard oversimplifies the environmental needs of the plant.
We need a sulfate standard policy that follows modern science, addresses site-specific variables, and contains costs.
That projected cost of over $1 billion could make them less competitive, which could threaten their careers.
I don't really think it's landed home yet for a lot of people.
Jake Friend is the union president for the USW out of Keetac.
These lakes and streams are in question. I go and fish them, and so it's, I obviously don't want to go and fish somewhere that's polluted.
Mine owner U.S. Steel is working with a global pool of experts and funding research into potential technologies. The state has also allocated close to $20 million for this work. Steve Bonach from the other U.S. Steel facility, Mintac in Mountain Iron, tells us he sees the company's efforts. His mine is up next for those permits.
They're trying to make improvements every year. Every year, millions of dollars goes into it. But obviously, it's not enough right now.
The steelworkers feel like the regulatory deck is stacked against them.
Then it leaves us to believe that there's just this opinion out there that they don't want mining in Minnesota.
And no one is mining at Al King's facility right now. Minorca, which is owned by Cleveland Cliffs, is now on indefinite idle. It's been a family affair working there at the mine in Virginia. And another King tradition has to do with the very plant at the heart of this issue.
I grew up on wild rice. My dad's a band member for Boys Fort. He and my uncle would go out and literally rice every single year.
He says it's frustrating to see people who aren't native make these decisions about what's right for the rice. King added that the steelworkers are the boots on the ground to stay in environmental compliance.
We're the ones that are keeping the companies accountable for this. And we're sitting here saying, guys, we're not polluting the earth up here. We live up here, we love it up here, and we're the ones holding these companies accountable.
All of the mines have wastewater permits up at different times. We already mentioned Mintac and Minorca. About 30 minutes away is Hibbing Taconite, another Cliffs operation. Their more immediate issue is running out of ore. Their union president, Chris Johnson, hopes they'll be open long enough to see a common-sense solution to the standard.
We want environmental regulation. We just don't want overreach and things you can't prove out with science. But we're not just going to sit by and take it. We're going to stand and fight with every one of these people.
He suggested support from a federal agency could be helpful. Cliffs North Shore Mining is working on a progression of their tailings basin called Milepost 7. It's in Lake County. The environmental group Water Legacy is suing Cliffs and the DNR over this project. North Shore's union president, Dan Movich, says it's frustrating for them to be painted as polluters.
I have to do things as an employee of North Shore Mining that most people wouldn't even consider at home. You know, any amount of a synthetic fluid that we spill on the property must be reported. How many people do you know that change their oil at home, that spill a cup on the ground and don't say anything or don't do anything about it? Oh, it'll be fine. You can't do that at the mines.
And finally, at United Taconite in Eveleth and Forbes, their union president, James Larson, sees the standard issue like this.
So all we're looking for is just a fair shake, real science. Like, let's really talk about reality. What rubber meets the road, what really happens, what does it affect, you know, and get down to it, and what's a realistic number.
Because the numbers they are losing sleep over are the thousands of people who clock in and make these dozens of communities their homes. And the MPCA is hosting a public meeting about the Keetac permits on Wednesday, September 3rd in Virginia. We have details at WDIO.com. We did reach out to the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa. Their water projects coordinator, Nancy Schultz, said in a statement, the science is very clear, despite what the mining industry claims. She added, sulfate doesn't kill wild rice directly. It is a cumulative effect. The band is strongly supportive of the MPCA, including the sulfate limit in the draft permits for Keetac, and that exercising the Clean Water Act responsibilities is long overdue.